Hey guys, I'm Richard Pichardo, and I will be doing the presentation on disasters and tourism. So, the tourism industry. Tourism plays an important role in enhancing a nation's business activity, income, foreign currency earnings, and the creation of jobs. In fact, the travel and tourism industry is one of the world's largest industries with a global economic contribution of over 7.6 trillion US dollars. Moreover, in 2016, two regions saw a significant amount of growth in tourism, those being the Caribbean, which saw growth of almost 5%, and Mexico, which saw itself jump into the top 10 tourist destinations in the world. In fact, the tourism industry was responsible for 16% of Mexico's total GDP in 2016. However, we're not just talking about tourism, we are talking about tourism and disasters. And there are two types of disasters. We have natural disasters, which you see on the left, which are major adverse events that result from natural processes of the earth. Some examples are floods, hurricanes, tornadoes, earthquakes, tsunamis, wildfires, and volcanic eruptions. Natural disasters can cause the loss of life, property, damage to infrastructure, which impede the recovery efforts of not only the citizens and the city and the everyday life, but tourism as well. And then we also have man-made disasters, which an example is on the right. Man-made disasters have the element of human intent or negligence, which lead to human suffering, environmental damage, physical damage, and unfortunately, they too have an effect on tourism. Uh, some examples are the Deepwater Horizon explosion that happened in the Gulf of Mexico. That not only disrupted the tourism industry in the Gulf because the beaches were unsafe, but it also disrupted the fishing industry. And another example is that of 9/11, where terrorist attacks caused fear and panic, and many people avoided the area of New York. So, how does the tourism industry deal with disasters? Well, the tourism industry is increasingly resilient to both natural and man made threats. The effective management of natural disasters is enacted in four phases, and those are the four R's: readiness, reduction, response, and recovery. Readiness involves businesses and destinations being prepared with contingency plans and a set of actions to respond to anticipated crisis events. The key element of response is speed, accuracy, and verifiability. Reduction, I know we skipped around a little bit, but reduction involves establishing a spatial context for the problem or issue, and recovery is the process to restore the reputation of the business and destination and to assure the stakeholders that visitation and business can resume. Overall, studies have shown that impact and recovery depends on a number of factors. These include the destination and tourist type, the type of event, the frequency and scale of the destruction. Two examples of recovery tourist destinations after disasters are the city of Miami after Hurricane Andrew. Prior to Andrew, Miami was just seen as a warm winter getaway, and afterwards, Miami rebuilt, and many see it now as a year-round luxury destination. And as we saw a picture of it in the slide before, 9/11 is another location. Or excuse me, 9/11 is another event that the city of New York has recovered from, and the Lower Manhattan and Financial District in New York have clearly seen a rebound in tourism. So, here is one example that we can study on in depth on the effects of tourism and disasters. Hurricane Katrina, as we all know, was a devastating hurricane. It hit New Orleans as a Category 3. It caused hundreds of billions of dollars in damage and massive flooding as the levees broke throughout the city as well as the state of Louisiana. However, New Orleans has bounced back. It's been more than 10 years now, but when we study the numbers, hotel revenue is up nearly it was $1 billion in 2004, and in 2015 it saw $1.37 billion. And hotel occupancy is also up. In 2004 it was roughly 63%, and in 2014 that number was at 69%. And we can go further into the numbers, and just the year right after Katrina hit, New Orleans had 3.7 million visitors, and in 2015 there were roughly 9.5 million visitors in the city. The city also has 600 more restaurants than it did prior to Katrina hitting, and the hotel occupancy rates are higher than they were ever before. So that's a clear-cut example of how cities can rebound from natural disasters and the tourism industry can still flourish. This next example, though, is one that many people are wondering, how long will it take for Puerto Rico to recover? Unfortunately, Puerto Rico was hit 2 times this past hurricane season. Once by Irma, and while they were still recovering, they got hit by Hurricane Maria, which was a Category 5 storm with sustained winds of over 175 miles per hour. It caused over $90 billion in damage and took over 100 lives. Now, the thing about Puerto Rico is that Puerto Rico sees more than 5 million visitors a year. This was obviously prior to the hurricane, and those visitors spend close to $4 billion, which create jobs, and the tourism industry employs roughly 80,000 people. Now, that's a small portion of the overall economy, but it's still 8% of Puerto Rico's economy, and due to the fact that Puerto Rico, prior to the storm striking, was in a major recession, but tourism was still that steady income flow. So it'll be interesting to see what happens, because here we are almost 7-8 months later, and people are still reeling, and there's still parts of the island that need power. So hope you guys enjoyed my presentation on tourism and disasters, and I am ready for your questions, and I hope you have a great week.